Hey all, so this is the Realm of Fire event. This is a Fire Commander event and Chaotic Killer. I've made up a few teams. I did manage to get this event deck. So these are the teams I've made up so far. One for the guild bosses, one for the solo bosses, and one for the maps. They pretty much all rely on the golems or immortal killer cards, with the exception of the first team that doesn't have any of the golems in. So let's go through the teams. Let's start with the ultimate form from the current event deck. So this creates power gems over 3 turns. So that's pretty effective for the Crusade maps. It's also potentially good in GBG as it removes debuffs and buffs from the enemy. So there we go, that's the ultimate form. So I have a few immortal killer cards from the Guru's deck. Just find them all. There we go, there's 3 of them in total. These have that nice 1200% attack boost. So these are quite useful for getting through the maps with a single affinity team. Okay, same with this one. It also has the triple attack buff, which is pretty useful as well. Not so useful when trying to get overkill, but good on the maps and decent on the guild bosses. And then finally, this is the card you want if you don't have the current event deck. This has an armor counter skill as well. This is pretty useful for the solo bosses, as the solo bosses have armor. So if you don't have the event deck, this is a very useful card. It also has the killer skill required. And then moving on, back with the ultimate form, all the decks have this, and then it's just 2 immortal killer cards with the golems. So the idea behind this deck is the deck gets 2 boosts. So the supercharged 2500%, and then the passive. We move on to the Gurus. That gives another 1200% on top of that. So that, I believe, is the most powerful team I could make up. And then for the guild bosses, you need something slightly different though, as they have fear. So this is the card that has the fear counter. Quite similar to the ultimate form, as it spawns power gems over 3 turns. And there we go, there's the fear counter. Without a fear counter, it is very difficult. I have been testing, so just 1 immortal killer card here with the golems. And that's the best I could really make up for the guild bosses. It's not massively effective, but it does do reasonable damage. So now let's move on to the actual event. Let's start with the Crusade. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into the Carillion map. I can take pretty much any Fire Commander card. I'm going to just take an ultimate form though, as most of the guild have an ultimate form up, which is pretty useful. And I'm going to do this with my single affinity team. Right, here we go. So with this, I really want to take a hit before using skills. I have 3 cards from the Guru's deck on the team. However, with the regular enemies, I might be able to do it without. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. I always want to keep the 2 ultimate forms going, as they constantly spawn power gems. Now this time I'll try taking a hit and show you the sort of difference. So that now gives the damage bonus from the gurus, and now let's just use one card to fill the grid with power gems. There we go. Perfect. That should easily defeat the enemies now. There we go. Look at the damage difference. The ultimate form, not far off 17 billion there. So, again, similar process for the bosses. Just take a hit and use all your skills. Here we go. Should have a few bonus attacks here as well if the boss doesn't die. And there we go, nice and easy. So that's getting me through the Crusade map very fast. So now I just need to wait for a solo boss to appear. Hopefully that won't take too long. I'll keep going with the Crusade map until a solo appears. Alright, so here we go with the solo boss. I did have one go at it, but unfortunately I messed up the attack, so I'm going to have another go now. This should hopefully kill it fast, as long as I get decent power gems. So it does kind of rely on luck, unfortunately. At the start, I need to try and match the fire gems, as they become quite hard to match later on. And carefully match dark gems. Alright, well, I have the golems card ready. Just do that carefully, and now hopefully that should give quite a few dark gems. Now I can start filling the gaps with fire gems and hopefully get some sort of match together. See what this does. Okay, that's not going to be good. I was hoping for better power gems than that. Lots of bonus attacks there, as you saw. I need a few more fire gems now. There we go. Now I just need to wait for a bit and hopefully get a good attack off. I'll do one more dark match. Alright, so let's try this again. This should hopefully fill the gaps and then see where they go. Well, that's not bad actually. Let's try that. Well, 50 trillion or so. The bonus attack should kill it. There we go. So no overkill on the boss, but it does get through the bosses normally pretty effectively. As long as I don't get some really bad matches on the grid, it should take out the boss in one attack. So now I'm going to move on to guild bosses, a slightly different team for the guild bosses. Alright, so I'm going to try on the Carillion guild boss, a slightly different strategy for guild bosses. Using a slightly different team as well. Let's see how effective this is. So with this team, as before, match the fire gems. Then I need to keep using this card, the Immolating Fae and Isa. That keeps the fire gems spawning. Also, fear doesn't very often seem to counter, unfortunately, which makes it kind of hard. So again, this does really rely on luck. That's quite a good grid from here, actually. Oh, it's taken... Yeah, I'll use this and see what happens. Well, let's try those two. That should be decent. Yeah, that's not bad. So again, I need to match as many fire gems as I can. Try and get those 3 cards with their skills up. Also try and get supercharged up again. If it does cast fear, using one of the cards will actually remove the fear. Okay, so let's use those 2 cards and then hopefully get a bunch of power gems on the grid. This might work. Let's see what I've got. Probably just those 2. Okay, that's not too bad. Again, another sort of 50 trillion-ish hit. Unfortunately, it's casted Thorns now. So yeah, that's the sort of damage the team does. If I get lucky, it would kill the Carillion boss with maybe 3 or 4 attacks, but let's see what the damage was like. Just under 200 trillion. So, yeah, not the best deck, but it's not bad. It's definitely the best I could make up out of the cards I have. Alright, so now let's have a look at the event rewards. This time around it is a Dragoon collection. It is really important you try and finish this collection. Dragoons, as you are probably all aware, are really useful in GBG. Plenty of good items for upgrading your Dragoon here. Those emerald shards at the bottom, especially useful as they're so difficult to get elsewhere. So there we go. And this time around it is a Warden. It's an Earth Warden. Earth Warden with Thorns and pretty decent stats actually. So here it is at 6 stars when it loads. There we go. It has an interesting battle skill as well, even though you're probably not going to use this in battle unless you really badly need a zombie counter skill for some weird reason. That's extremely unlikely. So defender skill Thorns, as I've already mentioned. Thorns can't actually kill the opponent, however it might be useful just to weaken it for the next defender. So it could potentially be useful somewhere in the defense. That's up to you if you want to use it or not. So the final thing I'm going to do is have a look at the other decks. It's the last event of the season. It's extremely important you use up your season coins, otherwise you will lose them. So there are quite a few good decks. The current deck is not bad, in all fairness. I'm going on to this one. This could potentially be the most useful ultimate form to get. It all depends on what other cards you have, as potentially this can fill the whole grid with power gems when used with certain other cards. I don't have the card, so I can't show you this. but it's because of the passive. This can trigger unlimited times and scales infinitely. So yeah, if you still have spare season coins, this is possibly the deck to go for. However, I do like the current deck. I have gone for the current deck. I like the fact that this could be useful in GVG, since it removes buffs from the enemy and debuffs from your team. That's entirely up to you to decide what deck you want to go for here. But the Light Slayer deck is probably the best option if I'm being honest. But it's difficult to say really. And that about covers this event anyway. I hope that was interesting and helpful. As always, if you do have any questions or suggestions regarding this, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to help with that. And thanks for watching.